Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Friday. Good to see some familiar faces in here tonight and some people who've attended some of the other panels as well. Thanks so much for being here. Just want to make sure everybody's in from the waiting room. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our third event of our Exploring Ithaca Signature Event Series, which is a virtual panel with local Ithaca business owners. My name is Samali Biari, she, her pronouns, and I'm the Bold Program Director at Ithaca College. I'm also a member of the Exploring Ithaca Committee, which is part of SACL, or Student Affairs and Campus Life, our signature event series for this fall semester. Just a couple of housekeeping items really quickly. The first is that you'll notice this event is being recorded. We're recording it so that we can make it available after the event, and it will be posted on our website probably by later tonight or tomorrow morning. We ask that if you are able to safely and comfortably do so, it would be great if we could all engage with our videos on. We also encourage you to feel free to unmute yourself during the question and answer portion. If you're not able to engage with video or audio, we completely understand that, and we want you to do whatever is best and safe for you. Please feel free to use the chat feature either publicly to everybody, or you can message me privately if you'd like to contribute that way. If you are registered for an SLI event, we'll be sharing the names of participants with the Office of Student Engagement so that you can get credit for your attendance. Just as a reminder, in order to receive SLI credit, you must stay on for the entirety of the event. So I mentioned exploring Ithaca. Just really quickly, our goals and why we started this program. So our main hope was to increase education and awareness for all the amazing things that Ithaca has to offer, specifically our local businesses. And we really wanted to encourage investment into these local businesses and try to encourage our students, faculty, and staff to shop and buy locally. We also really wanted to build long-lasting relationships between Ithaca College community members and our local community by connecting with these local businesses and other community members. If you aren't already doing so, we encourage you to follow us on Instagram at Exploring Ithaca. Here you'll find a lot of information about these local businesses and upcoming events, specifically this weekend, starting today, October 23rd through Sunday, October 25th, with a few exceptions for businesses that have extended that offer. We have a ton of promotions, specials, discounts, sales, everything from 5% off to 20% off or buy one, get one deals. You can find that list of almost 30 offers on our website. I will actually post it in the chat for you now. Just scroll down to the section that lists all of the specials that we're offering this weekend. The other link that I'm going to share in the chat right now is specifically for students. So if you're an Ithaca College student, take just 2 seconds to fill in your information on this Cognito form. I know it looks a little bit weird in the chat. There's 2 links there right now, so hopefully you can find how they're separated. If you are a student and attending tonight and you fill out that form, you can enter to win a raffle prize. Tonight, we're raffling off a $25 gift certificate to Tamarind, a $25 gift certificate to Taste of Thai, a $25 gift certificate to Red's Place, and a $25 gift certificate to Sunny Days. Thank you so much to all of those businesses who donated, not only for tonight's events, but for the entire series. And we actually have Deidre on our panel tonight from Sunny Days, so that's a great addition as well. Okay, so we're gonna get started, and we'll do the raffle at the end. If you're not able to stay for those last couple of minutes, that's okay. We'll contact you, and all students who have attended any of these events will also be entered into our grand prize raffle. After probably next week, after all of our events, we'll reach out to all students from the 3 events and also the grand prize winner so that we can coordinate distributing those prizes all at once. Okay, so thanks again so much to our panelists for being here tonight. I'll have you all introduce yourselves in a moment. And thanks to everyone for attending. Tonight we're going to hear from 3 panelists. We have Laura, owner of Odyssey Bookstore, Deidre, co-owner of Sunny Days, and Steve, owner of South Hill Cider. So I have a series of questions for you all, and then we'll open it up for question and answer at the end. Again, please feel free to post questions or comments in the chat, or you can message me directly. So to get us started, I'd like to ask all three of you to introduce yourself, but also tell us, what's your business? What do you do? What do you sell? What's your goal with your business? And we'll start with Laura, and then feel free to go in any order.
Hi, I'm Laura Larson. I grew up in Ithaca. I went to school here, then I moved away, and I moved back about a year and a half ago to open Odyssey Bookstore, which I was told is the first new independent bookstore open in Ithaca in 25 years. So it's an interesting undertaking. And I sell books, surprise. So Deidre or whomever.
Oh, okay. So I'm Deirdre Kurzweil. I own Sunny Days of Ithaca, and I opened it almost 7 years ago. I originally opened on the corner over by the public library, and then after our first 5-year lease ended, we moved over to the Commons a couple years ago. And yeah, I that's it. That's my introduction. I'll say more later. We sell all sorts of souvenirs and gift things connected to Ithaca in the Finger Lakes.
Hello, my name is Steve Seelan. I'm the owner, orchardist, and cider maker at South Hill Cider. We have a cidery that's near Buttermilk Falls at the top of Sandbank Road, and we make hard cider from local apples. And at the tasting room, we have food and cider. And for these times, we actually got a bunch of fire pits and a tent that's ventilated but also warm with propane heaters in there. So we're hoping that we can extend the season and people can continue to get together outside for as long as the weather permits.
That's the best news I've heard all day, Steve.
Great.
Thank you all so much. So I would love to hear from all of you. What inspired you to start your business?
All right, I guess I'll go first. I hit the unmute fastest. I have always dreamed of opening a bookstore. Growing up here, there were some amazing independent bookstores. I think I spent half my childhood between the library and the corner bookstore, which was right next to where Sunny Days was first, on that corner across from the library. I found myself at a point in life where I had the opportunity and it was a chance to go, what next? And I thought, okay, well, if not now, when? And so that's really what inspired me. But I guess I would say I love bookstores personally, but I also think they can serve as a really, in my own life, they have served as a really valuable, if you're familiar with the expression third place, that place where we gather that is not home and not work, where we come to find each other and just kind of casually associate in community. And I think it's interesting. I just opened, to be honest with you, in June. I tried to open in March, but like this little thing happened that put the kibosh on that. So I think I see people really enjoying the chance just to come and talk and, sort of have a casual conversation. And so for me, those are both the inspirations for why I opened it. And it's an interesting time to have that chance to do that.
Now more than ever, we need that. So I opened my store, like I said, almost 7 years ago at this point. It was, I don't know if any of you were around or maybe came to visit Ithaca when the Commons construction project was happening. Did anybody see that? So we opened, it was supposed to line up with the end of the construction project, which was originally scheduled to be 18 months. And so I was part of a business group that had gathered to sort of brainstorm of, now that this project is ending just a few months from now, supposedly, what is it that we want, what's missing from downtown Ithaca? And I also, like Laura, grew up here. I'm 53, I've lived here most of my life. But in the middle, when I left for college, I left for about 20 years. And then came back almost 20 years ago because it just drew me back. I mean, Ithaca, as you're probably already feeling yourselves, is a pretty special place. And I always wanted to live here. And when my son was born, 17, almost 18 years ago, I just decided that I was going to figure out how to live here. So I just came back and eventually opened up my store, because when we were brainstorming, we were thinking, I said out loud, why is there no gift shop? You go to some place like Niagara Falls and literally every other business is a gift shop, but it's a gift shop of maybe things made in China, like magnets and shot glasses that are not actually made locally. So I wanted to sort of take all that and put it together into one place, which is, you need souvenirs, you need your postcards and shot glasses and everything else, and, magnets. But I also wanted to highlight local artists. It's not just that they're local artists that are making things in Ithaca, it's that they're making things that are Ithaca. So the idea being that when you walk into the store, the feeling is, oh my gosh, this is so Ithaca. So I was trying to recreate what's like what drew people like me and Laura back to Ithaca. What is that thing, the essence of Ithaca? So it's not all stuff made in Ithaca, but it's all stuff that represents what this place is all about, whether it's the natural environment or just the general awesome vibe of the people and the place and the creativity of the people here. So that's what I was trying to create. And when we were sitting in this brainstorming meeting, and I said, oh, why do we not have something like this? Like, why are there, 100 souvenir shops in Niagara Falls and we don't have a single one when we have all these people visiting every year? And somebody said, you should do that. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And so I did it. And here we are.
All right, I guess it's my turn. Yeah, what inspired me to start this was kind of several things came together. One is I was making cider for years, and when I was a kid, my dad used to go to a place called the Cider Cellar where he would get together with people and they would drink cider every Tuesday. And then I'm also a musician, and so I had a lot of gigs in tasting rooms, and I'd be playing at wineries about 1 or 2 days a week for a few years. And so I was tasting a lot of wine and just getting used to the tasting room vibe. And it kind of what Laura mentioned about the third space is kind of like I got used to what it's like to be in that space and gather with friends and share cider too, because as a musician I would often take cider to all the festivals and parties that I would go to, and the cider I was making was a lot more like sparkling wine than it was like anything that people called cider at that point. And it would just surprise people. Over and over, people would be like, "What is this? It tastes like champagne," and I would just be like, "Well, it's just cider. I just made cider." But while I was working in the wineries and getting to know winemakers, I was tasting wine and cider with them all, and started to realize that the cider we were making was better than almost any cider we could buy, and it was often better than a lot of the wine that we could buy. That we had access to, and so that sort of gave me the idea to build a tasting room where we made cider. And so I planted the orchard around 2014 and grew the trees up and was selling cider wholesale for a long time. But then it took a few years to grow the trees and to get to the point where we were comfortable building a new building on the property to have as a tasting room. So we built that last summer. We started in April. We were open by September. And we've been open pretty much straight through. We had to close the tasting room in the spring in I guess March, April, and May, but then we reopened in June, and the summer's been great. We have a lot of outdoor space, so we've been able to host a lot of friends and family getting together when it's really difficult to do that. And every day we get the comment from people that they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so nice to be here. It feels normal," and it's really nice to be able to like offer that to people right now.
Thank you all for sharing that, those inspirational stories and kind of letting us see into what got your business started. A couple of you have mentioned COVID or kind of what the summer has looked like for your businesses. So I actually want to highlight that a little bit. And if anyone wants to add anything or share anything about how your business has been impacted by COVID and maybe what changes you've had to make, and maybe how the IC community can support your business during this time of the ongoing pandemic.
Um, so for me, I tried to open, and obviously I couldn't because of because of all businesses being closed during the pandemic. So when I opened for the very first time, I had to open with all the protocols that were put in place by the state. So there was a learning curve, but I've actually told people I think it was easier for me. I was one of the first retail spaces to open downtown, and I think it's because I didn't have to pivot. Everything, like for me, it was all new. For all of us, it was all new. Everything was different. So I had to do a lot of research about cleaning and sanitizing, and how to clean a computer, and how to like clean surfaces and what to clean with, and analyzing the space and being aware of that. So it was an interesting undertaking, but it just felt like another layer on top of all the other things I had to learn to open a business. But in terms of people supporting, I really think the thing, I don't know if you all have seen, there's just been a lot of push this season you see it from bookstores really pushing hard with the Amazon, the new American Booksellers Boxed Out campaign. But I admire what they're doing with that, but I think it's really more important to land on the importance of supporting local. It's not just bookstores, it's all businesses. And what I say to people is try to ask yourself if you can buy it locally. That people, I think, are not always aware. I know I learned a lot, like the sales tax that comes from shopping in Deidre's shop supports the library. And that this is all, it's not, that the amount of money when you spend it locally that stays local is just tremendous. It supports jobs, it supports at many layers, right? Like, I don't know about Deidre, I hire a bookkeeper who's a local bookkeeper, right? Like it's not just the people who work in my shop I'm supporting, it's all the ancillary businesses that we work with, or who we work with. And so that's something I think is very important. You might see, I worked with a bunch of other people, including Deidre, to do an idea for Read Local, which is get all your books locally, whether you get them from the library or somewhere else. But I'd say more importantly than that, what the Ithaca College community, particularly students, can do is just try to shop locally as you come into the season and see what you can find here. And because it really means a lot. We all will have to do this together, I think, to make it through this and support each other that way. And it's gift certificates at restaurants, and maybe putting together creative holiday packages. So that's my 2 cents.
Really quickly, just a follow-up question. Do you all sell textbooks?
So I don't sell textbooks. In fact, like, I hope nobody jumps out of their skin when I say this, but students should probably just rent from Amazon. Like, there honestly are things that Amazon does just much more effectively. But I do, of course, sell books. So if you're taking an English class and you've got a bunch of texts, and I've had, actually, I was surprised to hear this. I've had students call up and ask me to order them the books that they're reading in their class because they're specifically saying, I really want to support you. I don't want to support Amazon. So textbooks are really just not a good model for an independent bookstore like me. That's really doesn't make any sense. Please feel free to rent your textbooks. But for everything else, we and all the other bookstores in town can do our best to meet you what you need.
That's great. Good to know.
So I'd say ditto on a lot of that, what you can do, shop local. For that very reason, it's jobs. It's, I do a lot of my printing locally, my window washer. I mean, there's so many jobs, like Laura's saying. As far as the pandemic and, like everybody else, we were shut down for 3 months. We did have to do a giant pivot. We first pivoted to try to get as much stuff online. If anyone's ever been in my store, you'll see that there's a lot of things. There's a lot of different items. And so it's impossible. It's like a whole nother job to get your whole store online. So it's not, but you know, I try to on a weekly basis add more and more products to the store. Right now, it's just sort of the really local, regional stuff. You can definitely get all your Ithaca's gorgeous gear and all sorts of other local oriented things, regionally oriented things there. So the first thing that we did was reorganize the entire store when COVID hit so that we could create a circular path that people could walk in and not cross paths with anybody, which was a tremendous amount of work. You know, we basically just made a giant circle. And the idea was when we had zones and arrows and all that, and the idea was that we could allow 4 groups in at a time because we had 4 zones marked out, and then people couldn't do it. They could not like hold back. They could not just be patient and wait for the group ahead of them. So everybody was crossing paths to get to past. And so we actually, when the numbers started going up, or to be honest, when the students started coming back and everybody was worried about the numbers going up, we decided, and we've stayed with just being as careful as we possibly can be, which means we are backed up to just having 1 group at a time. So one of the things that you can do is if you know that you want to come shop, you can make an appointment. You can either call or email me, and we'll just do appointments on 15-minute increments, and then you don't have to wait to get in. Or you can just come and walk in, but you might have to be a little bit patient if there's somebody else in there. So there's sometimes a little line that gets created. So just be patient. And then the other thing that I would say is to just keep doing what you're doing. You know, I mean, our population, as you're well aware, doubles when the students are in town. And I know that there's a lot of like chatter beforehand of the community being nervous about that. But I really would say that I've been super impressed with how everybody's doing. I actually hired a couple of Ithaca College students part-time that do a few hours to help me out each week. And, you know, I could only do that because I felt comfortable that they and that their peers are being careful and responsible. And that's the best thing that we can do to keep small businesses going, is to stay masked up and responsible in our behavior outside of shopping. Because if, you know, if the numbers spike, then we'll get shut down again. So that's my biggest fear, is that we'll get shut down before the holidays at this point. So I guess the other thing I would say is, you know, if you're inclined to shop locally, historically over these past 6 Christmases that we've had, almost all the shopping was done after December 1st. And it's almost impossible to handle that in the pandemic, you know, that you can't have crowded stores, you can't have people like bunching all up. So, and also if we get shut down, then it's really going to limit the ability to even support these small businesses if you're inclined to do that. So I would say, you know, even though we generally, as we fight against, you know, hearing Christmas carols before, you know, before Thanksgiving or sometimes before Halloween, like that's a frustrating thing, like to push it on us. But I think this is the year that we all have to sort of think in that mode of just start now. And, you know, I shop that way anyway as a person. Like I shop year round because I don't like spending my money on something just to get a gift. And I don't like to encourage people to just buy anything for the sake of buying. I want them to find the right gift, and I want to help them do that carefully. So, so just start as early as you can. And thank you for even being here to listen to us talk about this. I appreciate it.
That's really great advice. Thanks, Deidre.
Yeah, that's a good reminder, Deirdre, to start thinking about it now. Very good. So for us, what we had to change around during COVID was we moved all of our service outside. So in our tasting room, we used to host events, like even all through the winter, we would have some music, and we would pack people inside and be all warm and cozy. But now we've moved everything outside. For the summer, it was great. That was the only saving grace for 2020, was the weather around here was actually some pretty decent weather to do things outside. And so we moved everything outside. We got a bunch of tables and chairs. We put up shade sails. We have a tent. And so people can get together outside, and we created space like in lines so people can space themselves out. It's clear clear to see where the 6-foot markers are as they're waiting in line to order. People can order outside, and we bring their food and drink to them outside. And so even our space, it was fortunate that our tasting room, we put a large glass garage door in for one of our doors because we wanted to bring the outside in, because the outside there is very beautiful. We have nice views. And it really works out great because we can have that door open and the other person door open. And so even our inside space is well ventilated. And so we've just had to think a lot more about space, low density, ventilation. And also we changed around our service and how we do tastings. It used to be most of our tastings were done at a bar where if you've been to any winery around here, you've probably seen it. There's a bar, there's people behind the bar pouring tastings, and then people line up and stand shoulder to shoulder, getting their drinks poured, and they're standing face to face with the server the whole time, chatting about what they're pouring, what they're drinking. And we had to change that around because of the density. And so we changed our tastings so that they happen outside and you're seated. And it's a tasting where you come and you decide which of the 2 tastings you want to get. And then we bring you cider and food. It's all one package, so you don't have to make a lot of decisions about what you're ordering. And we bring you 5 different ciders, 4 bites of food over the next half hour, 45 minutes. And so we kind of redesigned how the tasting experience happens with COVID in mind and for safety. And so that was we kind of wanted to implement tastings like that anyway, but we wouldn't have been able to make that change so clearly. But when we had to close for 3 months and reopen, we brainstormed how to do it safely, and that was the easiest way to know that it would be a safe experience for everybody. And so, yeah, it made it easier for us to make a change that we'd wanted to sort of implement anyway, just to check it out.
Thank you all. That's all really helpful information, especially because, we keep hoping that, there'll be a improvement with the current pandemic, but, we just need to be prepared and make sure that we have all the information and know how we can support our local businesses. So taking a step outside of COVID and thinking back to maybe before March, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges or hurdles, either to getting your business up and running or just to sustaining a small local business?
You want to change your order up, Laura? I actually had a giant obstacle when we first opened. I was saying before that construction project was happening and it was supposed to be over before we were open, and we were going to have this grand opening party that was going to coincide with the grand reopening of the Commons. And people were really ready and they were tired. If you were around during that time, you'll remember it was quite chaotic. And then instead, it ended up being the halfway mark. So instead of an 18-month project, it became a 3-year project, which meant the first year and a half that we were open, people were really, really mad about the fact that the project took longer than expected. So a lot of people stopped coming to the Commons because they were mad, and it was kind of ugly. So that was challenging. And the other big challenge that we had, honestly, is that I picked that corner because it's a really visible corner. But as you'll see, it's still empty 2 years later. So it's a very visible corner that everybody sees, but then they go and park and then they go on to the pedestrian mall. And most of you probably shop downtown. If you come downtown, you go into the Commons. And has anybody ever walked around the Commons and the perimeter of the Commons when you come? Do you ever even do that? That's you do it. Oh, yeah, good. But a lot of people, and then people will miss stores like Laura's because they're not right on the Common. So that's a challenge that we definitely experience being over there. And so we're constantly working with the city and trying to encourage signage that would point people, because I always felt like it was not in anybody's best interest, not my best interest, but also not in the visitor's best interest to not fully understand that there are things outside of the inside of the Commons. So that's a thing that I would definitely encourage people to go exploring on the perimeter of the commons and go find Laura's store. Steve, you can't find your store or your place on foot, sorry. But for as far as like just the people who are coming downtown, that, you know, to go out beyond the pedestrian mall, find, you know, the DeWitt Mall, find the, you know, Laura's store. And then over there is also where Press Bay Alley and Press Bay Court are located. So there's all sorts of like little gems all over the place. And then of course, if you get in your car and you drive a little bit, there's even more gems to find. So yeah, that was our biggest challenge, getting through the construction. And still, it's sort of a lingering thing because it went on for so long that people are still, you know, sort of, some people just got out of the habit and got in the habit of shopping on Amazon or something like that and didn't really come back to shopping local. So we're still working on repairing that, I think, just in general as a society and as a community.
I thought you might go, Steve, but I don't want it to be silent too long. Thank you for that shout out, Deidre. Yes, I admit that, oops. You can't hear me, can you?
We can. It's good now.
Oh, okay. My computer says that my speaker isn't working. So, okay.
It was a little spotty, but it's good now.
Sorry about that. The biggest challenge I had was that I didn't know what I didn't know. I'd never opened a business before, and there is no, now you're about to open a business. It's not like I totally want to write like, you know, what to expect when you're expecting a business, you know, like, you know, this comes first and then this, you know, and I did ask experts, and I hired people to help me figure stuff out, but people tend to know what's in their silo. You know, an HR person knows what the HR is, and the bookkeeper knows what the bookkeeper thing is. And a lawyer knows very specifically that, but stuff crosses over and you have to make decisions regarding the structure of your business and how you're setting things up. And there's a lot of laws and regulations around things that even things for me as simple as zoning and zoning limits and just trying to get like a super straight answer on stuff. I got surprised by things along the way, and no, it was nobody's fault. Nobody was being nefarious or difficult. It's just trying to kind of figure that out. I will say the Chamber of Commerce was extremely helpful, and that's a really fabulous resource if any of you are ever looking to start a business. I strongly encourage you to reach out to other people who started their businesses and ask them what they did. And then also reach out to the Chamber of Commerce in your town. I think those are great resources for starting. And of course, if you know, starting a business in a physical space is different than starting something online. But I think I told people when I first opened, I said, well, number one is don't break the law. And they were all like laughing, like, you know, like, we're not going to sell something illegal. But it's easier to break the law than you realize. It's easier to like miss that permit or miss that thing that you didn't know you needed to have, or you didn't know you had to check that box or something. And those to me were the things that maybe ironically were tricky, because I think if you're doing a business, then you're paying attention to that thing, right? What is that business model? Like Steve knows how to make cider, and Deidre knows what kind of, you know, souvenir things, and she said it's the other stuff that's other like business that I felt like was where I could get tripped up, and really had to invest a lot of energy in learning what I needed to teach myself in order to do that.
I would just jump in and add real quick to piggyback on that. Laura started with, you don't know what you don't know. So for anybody who is actually thinking about going to business, that right there, I think, is the best advice ever, to really, really, really try to force yourself to think about what you don't know, what you aren't thinking about. The thing that I struggled with the most was, and I had 5 different people review my business plan. I didn't have nearly enough money in there for inventory. Like, what is it going to cost to fill up my physical store? So the amount of money that I had allocated, like, maybe filled up like a quarter of my store. So I was sort of underfinanced from the get-go. Had I known that, I probably wouldn't have started my business. So I'm sort of glad I didn't know it because I wouldn't be here. But that made the first years really a big struggle to try to build up to what is the right inventory supposed to be.
How about you, Steve? I can't tell. It looks like I'm not sure you're talking to us, but you're muted.
Muted, Steve.
Um, Steve will. Oh,
I'll
there you
try it
are.
this way. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I was connected through the phone, but that doesn't seem to be working now. So the biggest challenge for getting our business going, part of it was getting the right apples. That the cider we make is like making wine, and that means that you use the fruit itself for creating the flavors. Cider is a poorly understood beverage because there are some 12-ounce bottles that you can buy at the grocery store and gas station that say cider on them, but they're not actually made out of apples for the most part. They might have 50% apple concentrate and then other things. But the ciders we make, they're like making wine out of apples. And so it's just like wine. If you want to make a decent wine, you have to grow really good grapes, and you have to grow them well and then make it. You can't buy table grapes to make good wine. And cider is the same way. You can't just buy grocery store apples and make a good cider. And so we had to plant an orchard, and then we also source apples. There's a couple small orchards in the area that we manage and harvest from. And then we also have a couple apple growers up near Geneva that have existing orchards that have heirloom apples. And then another one that we got to plant some of these hard cider varieties for us. And so growing fruit takes years because even getting the trees themselves takes years. That the varieties that we're growing, you can't just go and buy 500 of these apple trees because they're very specific, rare varieties. So we actually have to make the tree and then grow the tree from a graft and then plant it in the orchard and grow it for another 4 years to get fruit. So it was about a 5-year investment just to get enough of that fruit in the ground. And that started around 2012 that we started ordering those trees. So by 2017, we were making our first vintage of cider from those trees. And now a lot of those varieties are coming in. And so we're actually able to make much more interesting and complex ciders from these new varieties that are coming in. And so that was one of the big challenges. The other one was just finding the right property because you can't just plant an orchard anywhere. It needs to have the right soil. It needs to have the right air drainage. Like air flows downhill, like water flows downhill. And if you're down in a deep depression, you'll get cold air that settles there, and that's a frost. And so you don't want to plant an orchard where it's going to get frosted out every year because you won't get apples. So those considerations were challenging. Fortunately for us, it was just amazing that there was a property right adjoined to our home property that was a good orchard location. Even though the landowner, he lived in Florida and he wouldn't return our postcards for years when we checked in with him to see if, let him know if he ever was going to sell, to let us know. And then it was finally, we just wrote a 2-page letter explaining what we wanted to do and have an organic orchard, have a cidery, have people come and serve cider. And when we wrote him that really in-depth letter, he got back to us and offered to sell us the property. So it was really fortunate that was right next to our house. So yeah, we can bike there, walk there. It's really great, and it's a perfect spot for the orchard and for a tasting room. So what was initially a challenge ended up turning into a really easy and great gift.
That's such an interesting story. And anyone who attended our panel with IC alum last week, Heather Lane, co-owner of Purity Ice Cream, shared a similar story that they had their eye on that space for a really long time and kept kind of reaching out and saying, if you're ever interested in selling, if you're ever interested in selling, and it took similarly like kind of a letter with their story and why they were so interested in that space for the current owners to agree to sell the space. I have just one more question, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Again, any participants, if you want to start posting questions in the chat now, you're welcome to do so. But I would like to hear from you all, maybe a little bit about like what some of your upcoming goals are for your business, or maybe anything exciting that you have kind of coming up in the future.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I find it very difficult to forecast the future. Well, okay, it's always impossible to forecast the future, but we used to feel a lot more confident about, those confidence intervals. Now I'm like, who knows? So we do Zoom events. We're doing our third poetry reading tomorrow night, which is really fun. It was second poetry reading, third event online. We've done author reading. So we're hoping to push into that some more. We'd like to put together some book groups. There are pluses and minuses about being virtual, but access is one of them, right? Like, even though we all sort of get a little burned out about being online, it's also true that the barrier to entry to join a book group is like, okay, I'll click in, right? Versus like, oh, gee, I got to go down the hill and go in there and maybe it's snowy. So we're looking to do that, coming up with some stuff. We are celebrating Halloween in a socially distanced, safely appropriate way. So next weekend, if you feel like putting on your costume, come on down and, we'll try to celebrate in the best way we can. So, my goals are really, when I opened, I had some very, very specific goals that I put on my website about working to create conversations and community and some stuff around the mission. I guess it's the same. It's the same goals and, trying to figure out how you do that in a different way, in a different space. How do you bring people together? How do you create those conversations? And do it in a way that's positive and just keep checking in. Did that work? Okay, well, that was successful. We'll do more of that. Oh, that wasn't so great. So we'll do less of that and just experimenting. I will say we always take suggestions and love to hear from people about what they would like. And we have a room and we have considered the possibility. So, stay tuned to this space. I think it's a nice space. And that maybe we could have people who are comfortable socially distancing together, sort of maybe in the 5 to 12 range, come do in-person book groups. And we close the bookstore and people can come. Because I know people are going to be craving getting out and doing something together. So we are looking to do that and trying to figure out if that's something that makes sense all the way across. So I'd say, yeah, stay tuned. We'll see what happens. So, but I'm afraid to do, and if 5 to 10 years feels like, oh my God, I have no idea. So anyway, we'll see.
I would probably agree with that too. I mean, I've been trying to do 5 to 10 year plans since we opened, and now, I mean, it wasn't even easy when there wasn't a pandemic, and now there's just, who knows. So I'm moving towards my general goal, which is, again, like Laura, my original mission is just the same mission for the next 5 to 10 years, which is I wanted to have a place where people who are just coming for a few days, and it's hard to come here and not just fall in love with it. I think like to have a piece of it that they could bring home with them. And so when they go home and they look at that, they make that puzzle or they look at the postcard or whatever it is that they get, that it isn't not just a souvenir, but it's a reminder, brings them right back to the experience that they had when they were here. So likewise, for people who are students and come here and fall in love and like leave a little bit of themselves here when they leave, or people who grew up here and then leave for, and have a life somewhere else, like for all those groups of people, there's a place to connect back to what Ithaca is all about and the feeling that you have here. So I just want to keep building on that and figure out how I can continue to connect with both alum and I don't even know what the word is for a local who moves away and is just sort of missing this place. There should be a word for that, like alum. But all those people, there's tons of you out there and tons of us out there, you know, people we grew up with who moved all over the world, and to just keep figuring out through social media and other ways to connect with people, but also try to build on it as an experience. So for example, I've been thinking about this for a while. My son is a senior in high school and he's wants to major in videography and editing, which is he's looking at IC because there's a great program there. So I'm trying to get him to do this, but in the vein of like, if anybody's ever looking for ways they can help out a small business, if you are know somebody who's a videographer, my idea is to do Zoom. I wanted to do this in person, but it's probably even more conducive to Zoom, to connect with my artists and just slowly work my way through all the various people who are represented in my store and do a little interview kind of like this that's recorded, but to edit it down to something that is, you know, a little easier to digest, and just have an introduction like, who are you and what is your product, and why do you make it the way that you make it, and what inspired you and what drives you and all that, and to do like little like 5-minute videos and meet the maker type things. So I want to do a lot more of that, and I want to bring a lot more stuff online because that's just the way of the world, and that will help us through COVID and will help us, I think, also engage in that bigger mission of staying connected to people who can't stay here and live here forever, sadly.
Yeah, right now, what we're implementing for some longer term plans right at the tasting room are to develop some more um, interactive experiences. And so right now we're actually working on one with an intern that we got from Ithaca College. I don't remember the name of the department, but it's outdoor studies, leisure studies, somewhere in there. And she's doing an internship with us right now. And one of the things she's working on is an audio tour of the property and the cidery. And so it will include a little bit about who we are, but then also some history about the land and how the glaciers affected it and how that affects the soil that the orchard is on. It will include information about the orchard itself and why we are growing it organically. And it'll include information about the cider and how we make it. And so you'll walk around the property from one place to another, and at each station, you'll hear part of the audio tour. So that's one thing we're developing, to have a more interactive thing. Also, the Finger Lakes Trail crosses our property. And so we're always trying to encourage people to hike there or park there and take a hike from there, or, you know, do a one-way hike. You can park at Treeman and park at our place and hike all the way from Treeman to here. And just developing more interactive experiences. So rather than just having a place to go hang out, which is also great, there's a lot of opportunity for more interactive stuff. So that's one of our goals locally. And then just as an overall business, one of our goals is to increase our distribution. What we make is a very small scale niche product. It's not ever going to be mass produced. So it's not like we're trying to get sold in, you know, Walmart or something. We're trying to find all the little niche, you know, wine shops across the country that really appreciate high quality cider like they do high quality wine, and trying to get connected with them. And for a small producer to get connected like that takes a lot of work. Just it takes, you know, me physically calling most of these accounts, introducing myself, telling them what I do, and then trying to find the people that will appreciate it and be able to represent it. So those are two goals, both locally and another one nationally and internationally. I just got an email from a wine shop in England asking if we had distribution there because they found out about us and want to sell us there. But then there's all the hurdles of how do you actually get your stuff that far away. Um, yeah, and that's a whole other challenge.
It's really great to hear about, all your plans and all the things that we have to look forward to. I think especially for any of our students that are maybe not in the Ithaca area right now or not on campus, and things for them to look forward to when they come back or in their next few years. We actually had a question in the chat just about when you all started answering the last question, and I think most of you touched on it, but someone is asking, how can people engage with your businesses virtually or from afar? And a couple of you mentioned those virtual events, and I also know that at least some of you, and maybe you can clarify, have online stores and offer shipping. If each of you could just kind of clarify that aspect of it, and if there's anything else you want to talk about and how students can engage virtually as well.
So we do sell everything online. We not only sell everything in our store, but we're pretty much anything you could buy from any independent bookstore anywhere in the country, you can buy from us. And you can order from our website and we ship. We do curbside. So if you are local and people don't want to come in, we can do it that way. If you go to the website, you can find out about virtual events when we do those and those sorts of things. So yes, and we're working on gift cards, but we can sell gift cards that we ship to people.
I mentioned before that we are online, like about 25% of the store, and I'm adding more all the time. You can buy gift cards online to use online. You can buy gift cards in the store to shop in the store. So that's a little tricky. They can't cross each other, unfortunately. The other thing that I've been doing actually since I opened, before I even had a website, is that we do online private shopping sessions. So just like you can make an appointment to shop in person in the store, you can also make an appointment to shop virtually, where I will just literally take you around the store through FaceTime or Zoom, and you can just pick out everything that you want and take as long as you need to do it. And then then I can calculate shipping and send it, ship it out from there. There is on the website, obviously, shipping options for whatever you find there, but there's also an option at checkout for free local pickup. And I'm also willing to do delivery as well. So it just, the way it's worded by the Shopify is that it's just free local pickup. But if you put in the note that you need delivery because you can't get down here easily, then I'm happy to run it up to you wherever you are if you're local. So we just try to have all of the options available. We'll even do that, honestly, like if you walk up to the door and you can't wait, or you don't have the energy to wait in line, that we have sometimes like set up right there a FaceTime or Zoom call right there, and the person standing outside waiting in line, and I'm inside walking you around the store while you're waiting for the previous shoppers to get out. So we try to get as flexible as we possibly can.
Yeah, we also have an online store, so you can order cider, and we have a blog that we maintain, which is kind of fun. Whenever I find interesting things that we're up to, try and take some pictures and put it up on the blog, because a lot of what we're doing in our day-to-day stuff, like how we're grafting apples or how we're pruning trees, or even physically how we harvest apples, some people that are into that find it really interesting. And so I'm doing more of that, actually documenting that and putting that on our blog, so you can go back and just see a whole list of things that we've been up to. I loved Deirdre's idea about personalized online shopping. I'm going to try and implement that this winter for sure. We still have a pretty slow internet connection there, but we're going to have a good one pretty soon. So, but I think that would be a great idea. Yeah, just get on FaceTime with someone or Zoom or however, and just chat with them and walk around and talk about the stuff. I'm going to do that with you. I think that's a good idea. And then we're also going to do some online tastings. So we have a cider club that people join, and what we used to offer them was free tastings when they came in, but now people aren't, coming in so much, especially in the winter. So we'll be able to do that online, where we'll have a video chat and drink the ciders and chat about them while we're tasting them together.
Thank you all so much. I want to do a really quick time check-in. We're just at almost at 6 o'clock. Does anybody have a hard 6 o'clock commitment?
I do.
Okay, all right.
It's on a set.
If anybody needs to head out right at 6 o'clock, thank you so much for being here and spending your time with us and sharing this. Again, this is going to be recorded and we will post it online on the website. So if anybody needs to head out, including our panelists, we understand. And thank you. We really appreciate it. We did have one more question that came in, and I'm going to let Sybil jump on here in a second. I just want to say for the raffles, we've drawn them. So if you're a student and you need to head out, we'll contact you if you're a raffle winner. Otherwise, we'll probably wrap up here in just a couple of minutes.
So I was just going to ask Steve, if that video that you were talking about or the guided tour that you were talking about, will that be done by this summer?
By summer, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. I might be
Sure.
in touch with you because we're looking for some optional programming for adults who come to the area or the campus.
Oh, totally.
Self-guided options. So I'll be in touch. And then Deirdre, I wanted
Perfect.
to ask you, I loved your idea of having videos that feature some of the people who make the goods that are in your store, but I wonder if you could also do sort of like a picture of them and maybe a little bit of their story and have that in your store. Do you already have that, or is that something you've considered?
I do, for some artists that have put it together for me. I honestly, what I find is that people don't stop and read as much as they might be willing to listen to a 5-minute little clip of, that becomes more human, personalized. But I do have them hanging. I really love that. I think people want to know the artist that they're buying from. So we try to include at least a card for those who have it and a story when we can get it.
That's really cool. And one day when maybe we get a little bit back towards normal, maybe you'll have a screen in your store that just shows those videos of all the different folks. So people who are in the store who might be waiting on someone would be able to see those details as well.
Right now, what we have is actually a TV screen. When we got shut down, we put a TV screen in the front window up on a shelf that has pictures of a lot of the store products that are store, so that if you're stuck waiting outside or if you're just walking by at night and we're closed, you can look at the screen and see a lot of what's inside the store. But it's a good idea because we have a TV screen inside too. So once we get the videos done, we could put that up there. That's a good idea.
That's awesome.
Life goals.
I want to thank our three panelists tonight, Laura, Deidre, and Steve. Thank you all so much for being here and sharing your experiences with us, and to our attendees as well. Thanks for joining us on a Friday night. We know that you might have other places to be. I'm going to share again the link in the chat for, again, scroll down and see all the specials and promotions that are going on this weekend at almost 30 local businesses, restaurants, shops, stores, things that you can order online, so many different options. And I also want to congratulate the winners of our raffles tonight. I'm posting this in the chat right now. So we have Molly, Jessica, Catherine, and Helen all won gift certificates tonight. Congratulations. We'll reach out to you next week we're going to try to send the prizes for all three of the panels and the grand prize at the same time. So we'll reach out next week to confirm your location and address. And I hope that you all have such a great weekend. Take care, stay well. Remember to shop and buy locally as much as you can. Thank you to our panelists, and I hope that everyone has a great evening.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.